Hello and welcome to the TechBytes audiocast. My name's Tim and I'm from the TechBytes blogazine, and with me is Dr. Roy Shestowitz from the TechBytes website.
It's Friday night and I'm gonna get sauce. I fought the troll and the troll lost. I fought the troll and the troll lost. He tried to boss me and was outbossed. I fought the troll and the troll lost. I fought the troll and the troll lost. Underneath his creeper bridge, hoping goats will cross. Quoting Ashcroft and Tom Ridge.
Welcome to TechBytes audiocast episode 31 for Sunday the 13th of February 2011. Tonight's show you're with myself, Tim, and Roy, and it's going to have a very much a Microsoft / Nokia theme to today's show. You've probably been very fed up with all the reports and articles that have been covering this matter over the whole of the week, but hopefully we're going to summarise some of those views, and we're going to give our own opinions and our own slant on what's been occurring between the two companies. We're also going to be mentioning ACS law, and we're going to go off in our usual way with a few side rants and off-topic remarks about the world of technology. So without further ado, Roy hopefully is going to start us off with the topic of the day, and Roy, it's over to you.
Sure, it's more like a topic of the weekend. Since Friday, we've known about the Nokia situation. Any person who's been following Linux news the past 2 days would probably see mostly the Nokia news in it. I think the only thing which was distracting from that was some news from Google, or a few bits of news from distros, and there is some news from Cuba as well, moving to GNU/Linux and putting this in university and trying to educate the next generation to be using free software. I hopefully we'll be able to get to these issues later. I just want to say that in my personal opinion, and people will disagree with me, I've pretty much known about this deal for a while, and any person who's been following the rumor mill since January will know that this deal was brewing, and the companies were talking about just how much Microsoft would have to pay to Nokia to basically allow itself to be taken over by Microsoft. This also goes back to September of 2010, when as soon as Mr. Ilop was leaving Microsoft to join Nokia, the statements which came from Steve Ballmer pretty much gave away the clues as to what the next step would be. Back then, the first post I wrote from that day was that the remarks from Ballmer indicated that this person was possibly going to Nokia to sell it to Microsoft, or to give them the necessary assets to throw away everything else, very much the way Yahoo did after a Microsoft partner called what's her first name? Bartz. Susan? No, not Susan. What's her name? Carl Bartz, basically, came over after lots of lobbying from Carl Icahn, and all sorts of people were trying to pressure for a more obedient and more friendly towards takeover type of management inside Yahoo. Anyway, the situation, as soon as the company and the company was announcing it would have the deal with Microsoft, you probably know about the stock diving about 15%, employees leaving the building in protest and going out to the streets, and possibly lawsuits to come against the company. And also very interesting, that's a fact I found out yesterday, the amount of stocks held by the CEO of Nokia now is, I think he's the 7th biggest shareholder of Microsoft, personal shareholder, and he has no stocks of Nokia. So how can this person actually represent Nokia when all of his money is basically in Microsoft? And that's a really, really serious issue, and I think we're going to have some legal actions and perhaps investigations reversing what has been, by any person's stretch of imagination, has been a very, very harmful thing to all kinds of ecosystems in Linux, and in GNU and Qt, and all kinds of components of the systems, not just of Linux, but also BSD, for example. All of them being hurt at the same time by the sellout to Microsoft, one company.
It's worth mentioning as well, and you tend, Roy, to look at these subjects in far more depth than I do, but certainly I was very interested, and I think it was very telling with the walkout on Friday. Maybe there's a bit more you can elaborate on that than what I've read. But certainly I saw the reports about the staff walking out of Nokia in respect of this deal with Microsoft. I think for me the main thing that strikes me as sort of an indictment of Microsoft's status in society, if you will, or in business today, is that we're talking here about the mighty Microsoft, and it's forming a deal with a company. And let's be fair, when the leaked memo from the CEO was released earlier in the week, I think the term he used was, we are standing on a burning platform in respect of Nokia's business. Now, this is Microsoft. This was a company, the once mighty Microsoft, who probably could have had pick and choice of the prime firms to form partnerships with, say 10 years ago, 5 years ago. And now it's at a stage where it's forming an alliance with a company which, in the CEO's own words, is a burning platform. And I think that is a very much telling indictment of today's Microsoft, and that maybe this partnership hints at how desperate now Microsoft is getting. I certainly couldn't see this happening 10 years ago. I don't know if you had a take on that, Roy, or an opinion.
Several things here. First thing is, I think when he was talking about platforms, and I think his words were something like pouring gasoline on the platforms as well in preparation to get rid of not just Symbian, which is one of the most commonly used operating systems still in mobile devices. But also,
sorry, I'll just interrupt. So when I was quoting the burning platform comment, I think I interpreted that.
And also, it wasn't a memo as far as I know. This was a speech or something he gave internally, and somebody was transcribing the speech, and this was leaked out. But I'm not exactly sure. I know it's not a memo.
All right, so I read it. I read it was a leaked memo. That's obviously a bad source, but
that obviously because it's leaked and it was not confirmed for a while, but they weren't quite so sure how it got out. I mean,
I think the way I read it, and again I could be wrong, I only read a couple of articles on this, but the reference to the burning platform was in reference to their business itself, not necessarily an operating platform, as it were. But yeah, like I say, it was whatever it was, whether it was a memo, a speech, or email, or whatever. It certainly doesn't bode well for Nokia.
The previous CEO of the company, he was watching what was supposedly leaked. He was forced out, as soon as I think the board was kind of electing the new person and making some changes. It will be very interesting to know who was on that board who kind of approved this really, really poor decision, in my opinion. But anyway, the previous CEO, he thought it was a hoax. I'm not sure if hoax was the actual word, maybe he said something in Finnish. But he was getting across the message that the message was extremely inaccurate. In this email or in this memo or a speech, I think it's a speech. I think I read somewhere it was a speech. He was mentioning the iPhone as the winner of among platforms, and he mentioned something very something which I point out very often in this show. We tend to look, especially in the English-speaking press, about the U.S. perspective. Now, from the U.S. perspective, the iPhone might be the successful platform, but from a global point of view, that's what he said. The iPhone barely even matters. Like it's one platform, but Symbian is extremely big in places even like China and Europe and Africa. Of course, in Africa you have lots of these recycled phones like Motorola and Nokia and things like that, and none of them would, conceivably run all of these smartphones, which are more like accessories and running games and who knows fart apps, things like that. They just don't have these. So basically the basis upon which Elop was trying to justify throwing away what he was working on was completely bogus. And he was saying that the memo was written as though it had been, written up by an analyst from the United States trying to persuade the company to go in a certain way. And analysts tend to be hired by companies to press for certain directions. So sometimes they will say, well, this company should consider proprietary software in the field of like monitoring or something because, I suppose they'll find some excuse, they'll find some reasoning, they'll give some data, and they'll say, well, this is obviously the case. and the person who paid them to say so or to do so is going to be very satisfied with the results, and that's the reason to pay analysts in the first place. So one explanation